Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Sanders, and today I want to talk about the congestion pricing pause that Kathy Hochul has been doing. And Brad Lander has come out and decided to sue her. Now, keep in mind that congestion pricing was supposed to pay for subway upgrades, it was supposed to pay for upgrades to allow people who are physically disabled to access the subways and the buses more, efficiently, more easily. And it was going to provide upgrades, additional service to areas that are underserved as it relates to the subway. Also, it would open up funds for the streets to be upgraded. So, look, everybody says that people who are riding the subway should pay for what they use. Well, the same applies to the street, in my opinion. You got to pay for what you use. It's like a toll. You're paying for what you use, right? So, so people who say, "Oh, well," they always nitpick the subway riders. Oh, it doesn't cover everything. Well, currently, the money from what people paying or were paying in gas taxes before Kathy Hochul suspended them, and before she suspended the bridge taxes that were being collected on some of the New York City bridges. They didn't finance all of the maintenance and all of the upkeep for those things. So, so there you go. Um, so Brad Lander at 11 a.m. on Thursday, on Thursday, July 25th, announced that, you know what, he's got a lawsuit. And here we have the Streets blog article about that lawsuit. The headline, "We'll See You in Court, Governor Edition." Today's the day that City Comptroller Brad Lander and his team of legal eagles will start the fight to save congestion pricing. All right. All right. For us, it's the Super Bowl and Subway Series. See what I did here? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Oh, you know what? Let me get to the actual article about the lawsuit. Hmm. Chuck, they don't have it at the. All right, at long. So we'll look at this one. So analysis: Can Hochul be sued into overturning her unlawful congestion pricing pause? Will either suit win, or more important, will it force Hochul to settle? that's that's why you want a lawsuit in this case, because if you can settle, then you know you don't need to follow all the way through with it. Well, at long last, the threatened lawsuits aiming to reverse gridlock Governor Kathy Hochul's congestion pricing pause have been launched. One argues that the pause is illegal because the state must implement congestion pricing. The other says that the governor is violating two of New York's landmark environmental laws. Will either suit win, or more importantly, will they force Hochul to settle? The two lawsuits stand before you on Thursday. Congestion pricing advocates and their attorneys gathered outside the David Dinkins Municipal Building to announce they are suing the governor on two fronts. One group of plaintiffs is suing under the Article 78 of New York Civil Practice Law, a type of lawsuit that allows people to challenge decisions made or actions taken by government officials or agencies. In this instance, the plaintiffs are suing on the ground that Hochul made an arbitrary and capricious decision when she ordered the congestion pricing pause, and that telling the State Department of Transportation Commissioner Marie Therese Dominguez to not sign a federal document allowing congestion pricing to begin violates the law because Dominguez does not have a choice when it comes to signing the document. The crux of the suit is simple: because the law establishing congestion pricing, known as the Traffic Mobility Act, demands that the MTA shall plan, design, install, construct, and maintain a central business district toll collection system. Governor Hochul does not have the authority to pause it. Interesting, right? According to one of the lawyers arguing the case, the issue at hand isn't just congestion pricing, it's about whether or not we live in a society governed by laws. This is a clear case about democracy, said a plaintiff's attorney, Annie Sally. It's a case that asks the question whether an executive official is allowed to defy the law, to ignore the will of the legislature, to append decades of long process of policymaking simply because at the last minute she changed her mind. The obvious answer to this question is no. Another group of plaintiffs says that Hochul's pause violates two recently passed state environmental laws, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which mandates the state reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030 and 80% by 2050. The other is the so-called Green Amendment, an amendment to the state constitution guaranteeing New Yorkers a right to clean air and water and a healthful environment that was passed by a ballot referendum in 2021. Clearly, the attorneys argue Hochul's decision to cancel congestion pricing violates New Yorkers' right to clean air and healthful environment since it upends a plan to lower emissions and reduce vehicle miles traveled, and because the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act resulted in a plan in which the state recognized the need to greatly reduce the vehicle miles traveled statewide to hit the climate goals. The attorneys argue that Hochul is kneecapping the law by refusing to implement congestion pricing. Woo! Well, and okay, so now I'm going to skip around a little bit. Will this work? Both cases have a tough road ahead in the Article 78 lawsuit. Outside legal experts note that the field is tilted towards the government because judges are not leaping out of their robes to force elected officials to take one action or another. Yeah, good point. Readers of Street Blog are no doubt familiar with the bevy of tossed out Article 78 lawsuits attempting to stop the City Department of Transportation from putting in busways and bike lanes. Oh, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Because if they can do this, then, what other things, does it allow judges to do? Courts are not going to be very deferential to the government. Courts are going to be very deferential to the government's decision making, said Michael Pollack, a law professor at the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law. The arbitrary and capricious standard is a very low bar for the government to meet. It's essentially, does the government have some plausible, not arbitrary reason? They don't need to prove sufficiently that there's a causal connection between car usage or car deterrence and the rebound of the central business district. They can sort of gesture towards that and say that it was not arbitrary for us. All right. To think that there would be this connection. So, there you have it. But Hochul will still need to answer the charge that her decision to use the state DOT to block congestion pricing wasn't driven by an arbitrary and capricious decision-making process. And in that sense, Pollack said that the governor's lack of a credible explanation for the pause could hurt her in court. Oh, interesting. One of the reasons why a lawsuit is a challenge, but also a reason why the government actions here are themselves vulnerable to the lawsuit, is that it's so murky what the relevant actors have actually done here, he said. Hochul hasn't provided any studies showing that the implementation of congestion pricing would, for instance, hurt Midtown's COVID recovery, or that stopping the toll would protect New Yorkers from higher costs. She hasn't explained how long the purported pause is supposed to last or what conditions would end it. The yawning gap between what she said publicly and how a state agency is supposed to back up its decision-making process leaves plenty of room for a legal wedge. Interesting. Wow. Okay. So, and there is a ton more here, but yeah, this is a Streets blog analyzing the congestion pricing lawsuits. Let me know what you think about them in the comments. I'm so thrilled that Kathy Hochul is finally being sued for not implementing the congestion pricing that is legally mandated by New York state law. And I look forward to it being implemented for sure, and I hope the lawsuits are successful. Granted, I am mindful that any such lawsuits could have unintended consequences. That could invite lawsuits on a whole bunch of other things. So that's something to keep in mind with these. But also, I don't really need the judge to rule. I just need her to turn on the congestion pricing. I think that's what we need. So, in any case, have a great weekend and ciao ciao.